additional amendments. Article 11, Amendment 11, Suits against States. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. Article 12, Amendment 12, Election of President. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall be an inhabitant of the state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in all distinct ballots the person voted for as vice president, and they shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president and all persons voted for as vice president, and of the number of votes for each, which lists they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate in the House of Representatives, open all certificates, and the votes shall be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president. If such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no such person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president. But in choosing the president, the vote shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. The quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and the majority of the states shall be necessary to choose. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president. If such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no other person having a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the vice president. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole numbers of senators, and a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person constitutionally eligible for the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. Article 13, Amendment 13, Slavery and Involuntary Servitude. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Article 14, Amendment 14, Rights Guaranteed, Privileges and Immunities of Citizenship, Due Process, and Equal Protection. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Part 2. Representatives shall be appointed among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole numbers of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed, but when the right to vote at any election for choice of electors for President and Vice President of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or the members of the legislature thereof, is denied to any of the inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age, and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged, except for partition and rebellion or other crime, and the basis of representation shall be reduced in the proportion to which the number of such citizens shall bear to the whole number of citizens 21 years of age in such state. Part 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of the president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Part 4. Validity of the public debt of the United States, authorized by law, includes debts incurred for payment, pensions, and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal or void. Part 5. Congress shall have power to enforce, by appropriate legislation, the provision of this article. Article 15, Amendment 15, Rights of Citizens to Vote. The rights of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Article 16, Amendment 16, Income Tax. Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Article 17, Amendment 17, Popular Election of Senators. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of state's legislature. When vacancies happen in the representation of any state in the Senate, the execution authority of such a state shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies, provided that the legislature of any state may empower the executive thereof and make temporary appointments until people fill vacancies by election as the legislature may direct. This amendment shall not be so construed as to affect the election or term of any senator chosen before it becomes a valid part of the Constitution. Article 18, Amendment 18, the prohibition of intoxicating liquors. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within the importation thereof into or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverages purposed is hereby prohibited. The Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by legislatures of the several states, as provided in the Constitution, within 7 years from the date of submission hereof to the state by Congress. Article 19, Amendment 19, Women's Suffrage. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Article 20, Amendment 20, terms of President, Vice President, members of Congress, presidential vacancy. The term of President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the term of Senators and Representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the years for which the terms have ended, if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of their successors shall then begin. Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meetings shall begin at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the President shall have died, the Vice President-elect shall become President. If a President shall have not been chosen before the time affixed for the beginning of his term, or if the President-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the Vice President-elect shall act as President until a President shall have qualified. And the Congress may by law provide for the case wherein neither President-elect nor Vice President-elect have qualified, declaring who shall then act as President, or the manner in which one who is to act shall be selected, and such person shall act accordingly until a President or Vice President have been qualified. The Congress may by law, for the case of death of any person from whom the House of Representatives may choose President whenever the right of choice shall have devolved upon them, and for the case of death of any persons for whom the Senate may choose a Vice President whenever the right of choice shall have been devolved upon them. Sections 1 and 2 shall take effect on the 15th day of October following the ratification of this article. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by legislatures of 3/4 of several states within 7 years from the date of its submission. Article 21, Amendment 21, repeal of the 18th Amendment. The 18th article of the Amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. The transportation and importation into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery or use therein of intoxicating liquors in violation of laws thereof is hereby prohibited. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by conventions of the several states as provided in the Constitution within 7 years of the date of submission hereof to the states by Congress. Amendment 22, Presidential Tenure. No person shall be elected to the office of President more than twice, and no person who has held the office of President or acted as President for more than 2 years of a term to which other person was elected President shall be elected to the office of President more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of President when the article was proposed by the Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of President or acting as President during the term within which this article becomes operative from holding the office of President or acting as President during the remainder of such term. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, within 7 years from the date of its submission to the states by Congress. Article 23, Amendment 23, Presidential Electors for the District of Columbia. The district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such a manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of President and Vice President equal to the number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be in addition to those appointed by the states, but they shall be considered for the purposes of the election of President and Vice President to be electors appointed by a state, and they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th article of amendment. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 24, abolition of the poll tax qualification in federal elections, the rights of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, for senators or representatives in Congress, shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any person by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 25, Presidential Vacancy, Disability, and Inability. In the case of the removal of the president from the office or his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Whenever there's a vacancy in the office of the vice president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by majority vote of both houses of Congress. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge his powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting President. Whenever the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and his duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. Thereafter, when the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume power and duties of his office unless the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or of such other bodies of Congress as may law provide transmit within 4 days to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the power and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after the receipt of the letter of written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of the House that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall continue to discharge the same as acting President. Otherwise, the President shall resume the powers and duties of his office. Article 26, Amendment 26, Reduction of Voting Age Qualification. The rights of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of age. The Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Article 27, Amendment 27, Congressional Pay Limitation. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have